Hi, welcome to the Zway webinar about our big framework to IP idea. The idea itself is not new, but the way it gets implemented in this new exciting digital world is new. Make no mistake, this is a big and very important concept. And when you see the results you can achieve in your business, I know you'll consider your time spent here today as well spent. I can see a couple of people entering the webinar now, so just as soon as they're in, we will start. Great. Welcome to everyone. I'm David Claxton and I'm the Principal Consultant with Zway based in London in the UK. Today's big idea is the best way to tap into the second largest economy sector in the world now, the knowledge economy. Second only to finance, the knowledge economy is worth £95 billion a year in the UK alone. And our own Office for National Statistics says that 30% of all businesses here are working in what they would call the knowledge-intensive business. I've opened the comments facility on the chat, so if anyone wants to ask a question or just drop a thought or two on there, you're welcome. I know your time is precious, so I don't intend to hang around. I want to show you real value here as soon as possible. So let's get going. A few quick definitions first. A new acronym is appearing in discussion groups all over the world right now. People are referring to KaaP or KaaP. It comes from the people behind the viral uptake of things like SaaS, software as a service. Knowledge as a product is actually a methodology, a framework, if you will, showing how the knowledge you own in your business, the knowledge you take for granted and use every day, can be turned into a set of products. Products that can be promoted and sold. In a recent interview, one of IBM's most senior staff members stated that, in their opinion, the biggest and most important attribute a business leader needs to show today to succeed in the market is creativity. Questioned further, he alluded to what he meant. He meant the process known as KaaP, knowledge as a product. Here at Zway, we've broken it down into an even more specific term called framework to IP. Framework to IP is the process of doing the following four things. 1. Isolating and recognizing what you already have. Yes, it might sound easy, but in my discussions with some pretty senior individuals, you would be surprised how many digging questions I have to ask before we start to uncover the treasures they hold. It's not like they don't know what they have, they just overlook the processes they've defined and refined over the years. Processes that, when used correctly, make their business special. Often these processes are automated already, work extremely well, are unique to the business, but they're taken for granted, like a coffee machine or something. And it's not unusual for our clients to have a complete aha moment when I point out what they have. Secondly, we start to create a framework using the assets we've just uncovered. I'll show you much more about this process soon, and we'll also show you how we turn mundane, dry business processes into juicy stories that sell. Once you've isolated and defined exactly what treasure you have, it needs to be monetized. This is the art of wrapping and presenting the asset so anyone who sees it assumes they're going to have to pay to use it. One way that we do that is by creating a framework made up of the assets we identified. A framework has specific qualities, and when created properly, becomes valuable, memorable, concrete, and viral. Finally, the process of framework to IP deals with the IP aspect. It has to be proven to be an intellectual property of your company. There are various ways we do that, and not all of them are obvious. But what happens if we don't protect our business assets? Can we talk about theft? I know all your senior staff are of the highest quality and they're loyal to your business. Their hearts and your hearts are all one. And of course, nobody is planning to leave, set up on their own, and compete with you for the same client base. I mean, who'd do such a thing? Now, I said when using the last slide that not all methods to protect your IP are obvious, and here's what I mean. You obviously already have lots of legal ways to stop employees stealing your IP. Non-compete clauses and non-disclosure agreements and all that good stuff. But the framework to IP process goes one step further. It ensures that your assets are so closely associated with your company that nobody can claim them as their own without paying respect to you. It's a bit like, I don't know, a secret ink that you'd put on your bike, that blue stuff. Somebody could break into your backyard, they could even cut the security chain, but as soon as anybody looks at the thing under a bright light, they can see it's yours. Secondly, can I mention that your company assets form part of the value your company has, but only if it can be proven to be your asset. That brings me on to the last reason to protect your IP properly. If people can use your assets without paying, whether it's paying attention or paying money, then you're missing out on revenue opportunities. I have a few ideas coming up about how you can create revenue, incremental revenue from your own IP. This is a very short presentation, so it's not designed to teach you how to do this exactly, but rather to give you a flavor of what can be achieved if done right. So, what sort of businesses can best use this sort of strategy, and who do we normally work with? As I mentioned earlier, 39% of all businesses are now what we call knowledge intensive, meaning their biggest asset is the things they know and the way they do things. So although Zway targets the consulting niche, we get a large number of requests and interest via what I would just call serendipity from finance and general business. Here are a few profiles of the sort of business we work with most regularly. Firstly, and most common, consultants, business consultants that have enormous value already in their business, but have allowed it to sit there unrealized. It's like they have a Monet painting in the attic, but have no idea of its true value. And if you're not careful, when you move, you might forget it altogether and the new owner will inherit it. We have two offers for people like you. We can show you how to do this and help you and advise you on the actions and ideas as you roll this out yourself. Or we have a DFY, done for you model, where we do it all for you. I suppose I would say this, but pound for pound, the DFY model is cheaper than doing it yourself. We also have consultants that have already created their own frameworks. Perhaps they could use some help promoting and protecting it, but they're already, if you like, on the bandwagon. For these companies, our pitch is slightly different. We would normally offer to white label our services, and they can sell them to their clients. The whole idea of framework to IP can easily be incorporated into a consulting pitch to another organization, and Zway can do the work, almost like a subcontractor, if you will. Recently, we're also getting many more clicks online from people that own or run smaller businesses in IT and engineering. These companies have been built up over many years, specialized processes that help them operate at the highest level. If you ask their customers, it's what makes them special, but many of them have not even considered how they can create a formal framework from them. Whichever way you choose to do this, DIY or DFY, there are a set of benefits that everyone gets. Even if you do this badly, you will get return on investment. If done well, it can often does return 20 odd times the money and effort that you put in, and here's how. Firstly, you will or should be able to sell your new asset as part of your portfolio. It's like creating a new product, one that costs you nothing to buy, and selling it for a fee. This is incremental revenue, some of the best in my opinion. Secondly, the asset will have a value and will add value to the business. This shareholder value is like a savings plan for stockholders. We recently worked with a landscaping and construction business that added a cool £1 million to its market cap during an acquisition. That was a sensational result for a 40k investment. Looking at softer but no less valuable benefits, the perception of your company as an industry or thought leader will help with everything from new sales to attracting new partners and employees. I think you have to ask yourself at this moment in time, what other activity can you start right now that's guaranteed to bring in these results without risk? The framework to IP strategy normally takes around 6 months from start to finish. The Amplifies framework we deploy is a 6-month program of events. I'm going to show you some of the key action points on this presentation, and additionally, on our DIY course, we set them out in the most concrete terms, and you can just follow them if you want. Once the framework is delivered and properly protected, it becomes another one of your company assets, just like, for example, your machinery or your offices. Now, if you own them, what do you need to do to ensure that your value does not depreciate too quickly? Yep, that's right. You need to maintain them. We help you set out a series of ongoing events to make sure your newly created assets are maintained and last forever. In most cases, our clients immediately see ways to improve what we've delivered. It's great to see a client getting so caught up into creating assets from nothing. It's like mining Bitcoin, but much less expensive. The skills we use on just about every deployment in Zway are a mixture of soft skills and hard skills. If you already have people in your business with these skills, then we can work with you and your staff to get the job done. But don't worry, if you're too busy or you just don't have these skills in-house, we do. Firstly, my business partner, Pat Graham, and I are experts at digging for finding, recognizing, defining processes and knowledge assets. I have a full stack development skills and work with AI tools such as make.com all day. So technically, we have everything we need to get the job done quickly and efficiently. We even have pre-made automation routines that we can use as part of the deployment and refinement of your business processes. Sometimes automating a process is like bringing it to life. This extra value that only Zway can offer is unique to us. The combination of business nous, marketing energy, and our automation skills is compelling. We're very adept at using APIs and webhooks to automate even the oldest CRM, and even replacing it with new sequences and automations using AI if you want. My staff also use graphic design and the very latest digital marketing tools, and make sure, through a mixture of skills, that the world knows this asset is yours. Let's look at how some people in the past in history that did this without even knowing they did it. As I mentioned earlier, the concept of creating an easy-to-understand framework from thoughts and knowledge is not new. It's been around quite a while. While Londoners were busy trying to burn down their city, Isaac Newton was creating his own IP and developing his IP from framework that he found. The story of Newton's apple is one of the most well-known anecdotes in scientific history. Newton was forced to return home, actually, to his Woolsthorpe Manor after Cambridge University was closed due to the bubonic plague. And while sitting in his garden, he saw an apple fall from a tree. He began to think about the forces that made that apple fall and developed his law of universal gravitation. The law was their version of a framework. In short, it's a way that other people can easily understand it. Newton's law remained unchallenged until Einstein came along with his theories of relativity in the 1900s. By the way, the original apple tree still grows at Woolsthorpe Manor. A grafted descendant of the original tree is located at Trinity College in Cambridge. Now, this is just one example of how a single piece of knowledge was framed to become IP associated with Sir Isaac Newton. So if you worry this is a short-term investment with just a short shelf life, then don't. A little more recently, remembering Virginia Apgar. After the war, mortality rates during birth were a major issue in the Western world, so much so that doctors and scientists all worked to solve the problem. In 1952, Virginia Apgar was a doctor who created the Apgar score. It's a quick test used to assess the health of newborns. By turning a process she'd been using into a standardized test, she didn't just help countless babies, she also made her name synonymous with the method itself. Apgar, A for appearance, P for pulse, G for grimace, A for activity, and R for respiration. It became a product in its own right, used globally in hospitals, making it a benchmark in newborn care. The point here is that many other doctors knew how to test babies, but Virginia Apgar made the process her own using a framework to IP strategy. Even the big four consultants, and here's three of them, use framework to IP strategies. Here's just a few of the ways they use it every day. They obviously have never-ending resources to promote these frameworks created from their long-earned IP, but I have to say they've not done a good job. If you Google search for the best framework for digital transformation, I doubt very much if Accenture's Activate framework would come up. I also don't know of any other third parties that are using it and crediting Accenture. So these guys know what to do, they just don't know how to do it correctly, or they can't be bothered. Your clients don't need to be large organizations to benefit from the framework to IP strategy or the Amplifies program. The chap that runs this business has become a good friend of mine. The directors of this business are brothers, and being of a certain age, were looking at some stage to exit, building the business from a woodyard to a substantial landscaping business, but the offers they were receiving were derisory. Problems were, the business had a very high perceived risk when working on big projects and needed to retain vast amounts of working capital to negate those risks. Additionally, the brothers were seen to be too hands-on, and if they stepped away, questions were asked if the business could run without them. Amplifies solved these problems, and when coupled with some new AI-based technology to automate previously manual processes, the business is receiving offers up to twice the original offers. So to be clear, the deliverable here was increased company shareholder value. The next example has a different deliverable altogether, but from the same Amplifies program. You see, whilst our methodology is the same every time, different people buy it or buy into this for different reasons. It will be great to discuss with you what's on your mind right now. These guys saw what we were doing and asked if we could use the Amplifies program to solve a different problem. Their issue was about growth. It was slow, and they become too highly associated or tightly associated with a particular niche product supplied mainly by one partner company, Bank Paribas. This meant that they were losing access to other exciting key markets simply because people didn't know what they could do. Zway analysed their processes and helped them create and promote a new framework called Drive Plan. Result, they are able to access new markets and drive much faster growth and expect to get a 20 times return on their small investment over the next 2 years. I played golf with the founder recently. A nice guy, but he won't turn his phone off when on the course. A pet peeve of mine. As you can see, Zway has a pipeline of marketing around our own Amplifies framework, and we receive more inquiries than we can work with, so we're careful when we select new clients. Here's a quick snapshot of people that are not exactly perfect clients. Businesses that sell products and have no processes, at least none that customers, suppliers, partners, or employees really care about. We also often get approached by what I would call managers working in a business. We find that if you don't have responsibility for the profit and loss or the turnover or shareholder value personally, the whole benefit of Amplifies seems to wash away. So we try to speak to company stakeholders mainly. I also speak to a lot of people that want all of the benefits we discuss, but they don't want to instigate change. If this is your character and you don't like change, then Amplifies is probably not best suited to you. Finally, we've come across a few businesses that are just too young and are just not yet ready for Amplifies. I mean, they don't have the structures or processes in place yet at all. In short, there are no assets to mine. We have to try and filter these people out of our pipeline because identifying and honing important business processes and knowledge is not easy. We need to have the base metals or gems underneath the ground, otherwise we can't mine them. So what do I mean by mining? Well, the next 3 slides are going to show you how the Amplifies program works and what we do in much more detail. Firstly, we speak to business line stakeholders and we discuss and cajole and mine for information about how the business line works, what processes they follow, and why they make the business successful and special. This part of our Amplifies framework requires general consulting skills and a deep understanding of business process. We may not fully understand the specific industry best practices you use, but we do know how to describe and automate a business process. Pat and I have been doing this for our own businesses for the last 12 years, but prior to that, we both worked in Tier 1 telcos at VP level, so we do know how things work in bigger businesses, including all of the ownership issues and politics. Now, this is a process of prospecting. It's not alchemy. Just as a miner wouldn't try to turn sand into gold, we don't attempt to create anything that is not already there. We inspect the value of the asset we've discovered and we clean it up and sometimes assist to refine it. But knowing where to dig is the most important skill of all here. Zway consultants will follow the signs to the mine that says the money is here. The client has the final say. You have the final say on which value or which asset we will work with. In many cases, we have clients that look surprised and say, "Really? You think that has value?" They don't even recognize gold when they see it. But once discovered, we need to add value, add much more value. With precious metals and gems, this is like the cutting process. With processes, our job is to make them sticky. Let me explain what I mean here. This 2007 book by Chip and Dan Heath covers very nicely what is required to make an idea, or in the case of Newton and Atgar, a fundamental principle, sticky. As an example, let me just tell you a quick story. A friend of mine knows a guy who, when in the States on holiday, met a beautiful woman, and she invited him to his hotel bar for a drink. He remembers consuming the drink, but the next thing he knew was when he woke up in his hotel bathtub full of iced water, with a phone next to him and a sign that read, "Stop, don't move, call 911 and ask for a paramedic." It was then that he noticed the hole in his side and a tube that led to a plastic bag beside the bath. His kidney had been harvested. It's funny, isn't it, that these stories always happen to a friend of a friend, never to someone you actually know. I'm guessing you've heard this before somewhere, everyone has. Not sure if it's even happened or not. Moral of the story is, be careful who you get drinks from when out with strangers. This story is simple, easy to understand, maybe unexpected if you hadn't heard it before, but it's very concrete and specific what happened, and more than plausible, I think, quite credible. This, in short, is how your new framework IP asset must look when we have treated it. Make no mistake, this is an art. It's not easy and requires a lot of thought and idea crunching to make a boring process sound like a sticky story. A final example of what I mean here is the parable or folklore that explains why it's better to have what you have now than to gamble it on something that is less available and you may not even be able to get. This proverb has travelled all over the world. The Germans say, "Besser den Spatz in der Hand als die Taube auf dem Dach." Better the sparrow in the hand than the dove on the roof. If your company business processes went down in folklore, then we would really have a valuable asset, wouldn't we? In his book, 24 Assets, Daniel Priestley says, "Income follows assets." It's one of my favourite sayings and I quote it regularly. He means that any true entrepreneur must try to create as many assets in the business as possible. And these assets are what makes you, what you do most valuable. The creation of the asset, a sticky one if possible, is only half the battle though. Now we have to set you or your company out as a key person of influence. Your sticky story, combined with a tangible IP asset, but combined with a series of communication events will position you or your company as a leader, as a person of influence in your industry. You may already consider yourself to be there already. If so, great. But this extra proof point won't do any harm, will it? The systems we use to position you as the owner of the IP, and therefore the only person who really knows about what is going on, is very specific. We deal with much of the grunt work for you here, but you can also take things to a whole new level by writing manuals and books, using our resources and contacts to publish and make some of your content truly newsworthy. This step is a key part of the asset creation, but it has an even bigger relevance to the process of protecting your asset from thieves. Another example of someone who followed this process is Kyle Barmer. Kyle is a good friend of Zway and a mentor to our AI activities. I am in awe of his magnetic personality and ability to make even the most complex issues sound simple. But it wasn't always like this for Kyle. Only a few years ago, Kyle was broke. Pushing IT courses he created in his bedroom and speaking to empty rooms for less than £500 a day, life was hard. Kyle has read everything there is to read about AI and has over the last few years become one of the world's most knowledgeable people on the AI revolution. But things really took off for him when he used the framework to IP strategy himself. It is Kyle that first coined this phrase more than a year ago in a YouTube video. Kyle identified that one of the biggest problems people were having when working with LLMs, large language models, such as ChatGPT, they just didn't get out what they wanted because the prompts they were using were just not good enough. People were starting to say things like, ChatGPT is rubbish. Most of the stuff that comes out is made up, and so on. Kyle presents ways to create accurate and effective prompts by following his RISEN framework. Easy to remember and easy to follow. R for role, I for instructions, S for steps, E for the end goal, and N for narrowing. I could explain this to you fully if you wanted, but I'll charge you for that. Today, as a direct result of this move, Kyle demands £1,500 an hour for packed out speaking events all over the world. His YouTube account has over 1 million followers. Kyle is a key person of influence in AI. Now, let's talk about what you can do to get started with this idea. How you can take the first step to creating new incremental revenues and increase shareholder value in your business or your clients' businesses. Let me be straight with you though, nothing will happen. You will get no gain, no advantage unless you act now. But please know this, the next action I am offering you is risk-free. No credit card details, no free trials, no commitments. Just click on the link that pops up here and book a free one-on-one call with me to discuss your potential, your company's potential, to explore what's in it for you. Of course, we've got something to sell you. I wouldn't be wasting my time here if we didn't. But I know it's not going to be suited to everyone. As I said earlier, some companies are just not ready yet. Some people are just not in a position to get the advantages we bring. But others that have control and responsibility, the ones that control a business, that own the hidden assets, can make huge returns. If this is you, then I would urge you to act now. Booking this call is the only route into our new client funnel. You can't place an order online, so you need to act now. Click the button and book a call at a time convenient to you. I have one offer for you where I just act as your guide and allow you to do the work yourself. Or a more compelling offer where over a 6-month program we do it all for you, like a managed service if you will. But nothing will be available to you until we speak. So the only route we have into our consulting pipeline is through an initial call. We tried in the past allowing people to sign up on the web, but this just created issues for us when the client base we were growing were just not the sort of people that could get the maximum result from our efforts. And that is the whole idea of Amplifies. It's to create an environment where results are virtually guaranteed. If we can't see potential in working with you, we just wouldn't start an Amplifies program. These checks and balances ensure we can work perfectly together. You and your shareholders can get the gains you expected. So as I click the button to end this webinar and thank you for your most valuable time and attention, I urge you to click the link to book your call now. If you have any questions, I can answer them all on our call. It's free to speak with me, so don't worry. It's just the next logical step. You've already shown me that you have the intent and the need to increase revenues and to create valuable assets. So you just need to click the link in the box on your screen and book a time suitable to you when I'm free. So goodbye for now. Speak to you later, I hope.